By far, my most anticipated game right now is Cyberpunk 2077, a game that I've covered consistently on this channel for the last 2 to 3 years. CD Projekt Red truly solidified themselves, at least to me, as one of the best developers in all of gaming with the phenomenal Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, which features a great story with lots of choices, a vast and detailed open world, amazing and unique characters, tons of side activities from Gwent to a fistfighting tournament, to numerous fleshed out side quests. There's really cool gear all over the world to find, and 2 amazing story expansions. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is my game of this generation right now. It truly felt like CD Projekt Red went out of their way to give consumers value with that experience, something that I hope once again happens with Cyberpunk 2077 when it hopefully releases maybe later this year or early next year. I truly appreciate how pro-consumer The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt was, because it feels many publishers nowadays aren't exactly caring to innovate or give consumers grand experiences that are truly worth their price tag on release day. It seems to be all about the microtransactions. Now, I will also point out that The Witcher 2 Assassins of Kings is a very underrated game that really deserved more attention than what it ever got. Anyway, CD Projekt Red has quickly become one of gaming's top developers because of how amazing and quality the Witcher franchise was, but also because of their very pro-consumer stance. The company has very publicly called out greedy practices, promising we won't see any of that in Cyberpunk 2077. What's so refreshing about CD Projekt Red is simply the respect and understanding the developer has for gamers. Many, or well, most companies, treat this gaming community and players as statistics and really nothing more. Now, CD Projekt Red is not perfect. There are issues, and the main one often brought up is the company's crunch problem, and that problem has once again re-emerged in recent days because CD Projekt Red has decided to finally address it publicly in an interview with Kotaku. Now, if you are unaware, crunch is a widespread problem in gaming. When it's said a developer is crunching, usually it means developers are overworking to meet a certain deadline, like the launch of a game. Unfortunately, some studios have adopted crunch as a culture, and some developers are overworking year-round, some not being paid overtime, some working 7 days a week, and some working 20-hour days. All of this is leading to burnout and many talented developers leaving this industry. Just recently, games like Mortal Kombat 11, Anthem, Red Dead Redemption 2, and Fortnite have been involved in stories that uncovered those games' intense crunch. Obviously, this problem is not exclusive to just gaming, as I know many of you who have various jobs in all kinds of different industries probably can draw parallels to some of the horror stories coming from game development. But no matter what, this is a serious problem, and it definitely affects the quality of games being produced. So with CD Projekt Red, they've had a crunch problem with games like The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, which has resulted in extremely high turnover. Finally, to Kotaku's interview, Jason Schreier was offered the opportunity to talk with CD Projekt Red co-founder Marcin Nowinski and studio head Adam Badowski about the company's work conditions. They said that they had been following the conversations happening today in the video game industry and reading recent investigations by Kotaku and other outlets into labor practices at companies like Rockstar Games and BioWare. Crunch is ubiquitous in the video game industry, and CD Projekt Red wanted to take at least some sort of stance on it. They said they wanted to show that they were listening, improving, and working to ensure that Cyberpunk 2077's development would be less painful than The Witcher 3's, which forced most of the company to put in extensive hours. In this next section, Jason Schreier throws a possibility into this mix of why these CDPR devs wanted to talk work conditions with him. He believes it could be related to a potential future story on Cyberpunk 2077's development. Apparently, 4 former CD Projekt Red employees have reached out to Jason, claiming that Anthem's development has been very similar to Cyberpunk 2077's. One employee specifically telling Jason, "I felt that there are hundreds of parallels that could be drawn between the story of the rocky development of Anthem and the story of the rocky and even more rocky to become development of Cyberpunk 2077. At times, I felt I could just replace the studio name and the game title and it would all look so similar, almost identical." So I'm going to be completely honest here. I've spoken with a few CD Projekt Red developers in the past, and not all of them feel the same. Back in late 2017, I actually talked in depth about the chaotic development of Cyberpunk 2077 in a video. A fellow YouTuber, The Mad Queen Show, actually had investigated the problem, reaching out to various current and former employees and asked about their experience working on the game. The response from multiple developers was extremely mixed, with some acknowledging that they knew what they were getting into, and others just saying that they hated working there. Like a former Witcher 3 developer said in late 2017, when in BioWare they said they had a 3 months crunch, we laughed. During The Witcher 3, a lot of people crunched for over a year, some of them for 3 years. The Witcher 3 development kept getting worse by the month, the morale got very low, and everyone ended up complaining during crunch supper. Some of us were still looking forward to being moved to Cyberpunk and having a fresh start with a new project. When we finally started switching to Cyberpunk, things got even wilder, even more chaotic at that time. Almost everybody in my team wanted to leave. Now, a differing opinion coming from an employee that was still with the company as of 2017 said, "Do you think that SpaceX employees always work 8 hours per day, have no stress at work, never have to push themselves to the limits, and are always happy and undisturbed? Do you think every single employee believes in all Elon Musk's decisions and competences? Now, does anyone seriously believe that what SpaceX does is easily achievable with no stress, no crunch, no conflicts, and no sacrifices from anyone but Elon himself? Are you worried that SpaceX will fail because 1 or 2 engineers left unsatisfied?" What I want to say is that CD Projekt made me feel like I launched a space rocket. If I wanted to drive a tricycle, I would apply to kindergarten instead. I think it's important to note these comments were made in late 2017, and a lot has happened since then, but I did want to establish that there have been varying opinions of CD Projekt Red from employees over the years. My assumption is that like any workplace, some departments are better than others within the company, and based on what Kotaku reports here from their sources, that does look to be the case. But let's continue on with what CD Projekt Red is now saying about work conditions. Marcin Nowinski tells Kotaku, "We're known, let me be humble for a moment here, we are known for treating gamers with respect. This is what we've been working hard toward. And I actually would like for us to also be known for treating developers with respect. One of the ways that the company plans to do that," Nowinski said, "is through a non-obligatory crunch policy that isn't brand new, but that the Warsaw-based CD Projekt Red plans to push harder. He wants to make it clear to Cyberpunk 2077's developers that even when the studio asks them to work on nights and weekends, it's not mandatory. We've been working toward it for some time already. We've been communicating clearly to people that of course there are certain moments where we need to work harder. Like I think the E3 demo is a pretty good example. We want to be more humane and treat people with respect. If they need to take time off, they can take time off. Nobody will be frowned upon if this will be requested." Back also in 2017, CD Projekt Red faced backlash after Glassdoor employee reviews made clear that the studio had big problems and was chaotic, to say at the very least. CD Projekt Red's response at the time wasn't exactly met with positivity. They said they were working to make CD Projekt Red a good workplace and that departures happen, but the game is not relying on one lone individual. But the line that drew criticism specifically was, "This approach to making games is not for everyone. It often requires a conscious effort to reinvent the wheel. Even if you personally think it already works like a charm, but you know what? We believe reinventing that wheel every frickin' time is what makes a better game. It's what creates innovation and makes it possible for us to say we've worked really hard on something. We think it's worth your hard-earned cash. If you make games with a close enough is good enough attitude, you end up in a comfort zone. You know where the magic happens." Now in 2019, it definitely appears like CD Projekt Red is and has been becoming more serious about their problems, which I think is great because a happy workplace with tons of motivated developers is typically the best workplace. Next, Kotaku would bring up the early rocky development of Cyberpunk 2077, which featured a messy pre-production, the whole studio shifting over to Cyberpunk before the project could support that many people, and major technological overhauls. Adam Badowski responded about these early problems by saying, "It's always the same story across the entire industry. If you're changing the technology and at the same time you're producing the game, it's a nightmare for most of the companies." As Kotaku would add, it led to a difficult period for the company, one marked by turnovers and unclear direction. The transition from The Witcher 3 to Cyberpunk initially, that was the hardest part, because a lot of these things have to be defined, said Nowinski. "We have a demo which is sort of crystallizing the vision to prove that it's there." Yeah, so we've heard the stories of so many games over the years having disastrous early development. From Anthem, which was really stuck for about 5 years with no real progress on the game until after E3 2017. And then leaks from as far back as 2015 indicated that Red Dead Redemption 2 2 at one point was in development hell. Game development is not easy, and an ambitious game like Cyberpunk 2077 certainly has been difficult for those tasked with developing it. Continuing on, there have been accusations that the company is facing financial trouble due to Thronebreaker, the campaign for Gwent, not performing well, and both Badowski and Awinski denied the rumor, which might I add did originate from Jason Schreier of Kotaku. Awinski did specifically add that they have a big war chest at their disposal. On the subject of crunch, Adam Badowski had this to say: "From a wider perspective, we need to remember that the whole production takes, say, 4 years, sometimes 5 years, and most of the time, like 3 years, there's no crunch. There's no additional hours. Sometimes before E3 we crunch, but most of the time the production is super normal. We're talking about the very last round towards the release, and it's always difficult to manage, but you know that there are some complications. It's really difficult not to use all the forces at the very end. Plus there's another factor. Sometimes we have unique specialties, very unique people, and you cannot clone them. We need them to work on highly specific things, and we need to ask them to spend more time on something highly specific because there's no other way to do it. It's mostly research and development or very special requests like tools." Finally, to the last part of this piece that I do want to bring up, CD Projekt Red's leadership told Kotaku the reason why they wanted to do this interview was to give a public pledge to their employees to be better. Marcin Awinski would say, "We've created a lot of force functions for us to improve. Making this commitment, I hope it shows that we are treating this matter very seriously." And Adam Badowski would further add, "We do have private lives as well. We are getting older, and most of the people who are responsible for crunch, they have families, little kids, and they feel exactly the same." Badowski would go on to promise that Cyberpunk 2077's late development, or as Kotaku says, final hours, will be less crunchy and better than The Witcher's late development. I will of course have a link in the description to this full article if you want to check it out, but my opinion on this piece is it's a bold move, and I truly think CD Projekt Red wants to improve. It's not very often, if ever, that executives or leadership at a major gaming company are open to discussing work conditions and other internal problems associated with their development process. I understand why Kotaku may believe that CD Projekt Red is only doing this because they expect a story to come out eventually on Cyberpunk 2077. But I mean, this is being very proactive and making a public promise to being better towards their employees, which I feel is a step forward in the right direction. Only time will tell how things go because obviously actions speak louder than words, but this was risky for CD Projekt Red to do. They've faced backlash in the past for their treatment of developers. My feeling on this right now is that they do want to be better. Anyway, what do you make of the comments coming from some of CD Projekt Red's management, and are you anticipating Cyberpunk 2077? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, but thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video or found any informative value, and make sure to follow my other social media accounts for updates on new videos. Links are always down in the description below. I'm most active on Twitter, giving opinions on news that I don't always get into video form, so make sure to follow me over there. Also check out my Discord for all sorts of discussion on games. And again, thank you for joining. Consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.